What's going on, Alabama fans? Welcome to BamaNews. This is Patrick Greenfield. I'm here today with my recruiting writer, Nick Alvarez. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing all right. It's a busy time of year.
Absolutely. Yes, we know that. Besides playoffs, Iron Bowl,
Mhm.
recruiting, high school playoff, it is
Yeah.
wild. So we are here today because early signing day is tomorrow, and we are previewing Alabama's, once again, number one ranked class. So we're going to start this out with kind of some of the five-star prospects, and then we'll
Mhm.
go into what Tide fans should look for tomorrow when the early signing day commences. So, Nick, let's go defense, or let's go offense first. Actually,
Yeah.
tell us what Tide fans should be looking for. Let's start with five-star quarterback Ty Simpson from Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look at the 5 star specifically, Ty Simpson really is kind of represents the standard for what Alabama's been able to do these past few years at the quarterback position and kind of
Mm-hmm.
pulling in one of the best, if not the best, right? Depending on your opinion. I believe, Ty is at 3 on 24/7. And you saw it in the last, 2 weeks of his high school career. He wins a state championship game. He gets named the Gatorade Player of the Year, and he's doing it like you see in the highlights here with his arm and his legs. It's pretty fun
Yeah,
to watch. It's
great
exciting.
runner.
Yeah, and like it's something that is what a modern Alabama fan will just look familiar to.
Yeah,
And I think when you look at the depth chart at quarterback, excuse me, Bryce isn't going anywhere, right? Like it's not
right.
much of a question of what next year's going to look like. But we have seen in the past, you get the kid on campus, you get the work in. Alabama plays in a lot of blowouts. There will be opportunities, for the glimpses of Ty Simpson to come.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with him. Now he is the son of the UT Martin head
Yeah,
coach, so he obviously has a pedigree that we love to have for quarterbacks. He obviously knows how to manage games, and he's obviously athletic, as you can tell by these highlights. Something to think about is, Jalen Milroe, freshman right now. He's a quarterback on the roster. A lot of people talk about Arch Manning 2023. Do you
yeah.
see that kind of affecting Ty at all? Any of these other quarterbacks, or is this someone that could be QB1 for the Crimson Tide?
So I think you're not looked at as quarterback number one for the Crimson Tide if you don't think
Right.
you can be, right? So I think that should just kind of be the qualifier out there. Though I do think it's important to mention, Alabama was one of I think like 10 schools that did visit Arch Manning last week,
Yeah.
even though his season's over and everyone now is focusing on the class of 2022. So I mean, does it affect him when signing tomorrow? Maybe not. Is it something probably in the back of his mind, like it is in all of our minds, and how we got to see that situation unfold? Probably.
Yeah, a little bit of fan thought for me right there. And
Yeah.
obviously, you get in, you prepare like you're going to play every week. So Ty Simpson, five-star quarterback, he'll be signing tomorrow for the Crimson Tide. Super interesting prospect. Let's go to an in-state guy that
Mhm.
is the number one running back in the nation. Five-star running back Emmanuel Henderson, Geneva County. I believe a two-way school.
Mhm.
So not playing against the best competition, but man, this guy can play.
Yeah, I feel like when you kind of look at the 5 stars, you just forget about the fact that Alabama has the number one running back in the country because
Yeah.
some of the other guys were making deep state playoff runs and putting up amazing numbers through that. But Emmanuel Henderson is number one for a reason. He is smaller than maybe some Alabama fans would think of
Yeah.
number one
T-
running back
TJ
coming in and look
Yeldon.
like. Yeah,
TJ Yeldon's one name I've heard thrown out to
yeah, I
compare him
think
to.
yeah, I think 247 lists Emmanuel at 6'1", I think 185, I believe.
Yeah,
If that sounds about right. So like
it
I
does.
th- yeah, I think it's something that it's to look at. I mean, it's important to mention, but a smaller Alabama player won a Heisman last year, so I don't think that's a big red flag for anyone. Though it is a different position. I will say it is interesting that Alabama is kind of filling out the running back room in the rest of this class, along with Emmanuel.
Well,
I think,
as
yeah,
we said, Brian Robinson's going to be leaving. You don't know
mhm,
the status of Trey Sanders. Jace McClellan obviously was hurt, so I think and Kamir Wheaton has not played it
yeah.
down. He was a five-star running back from last year's class, so I don't think it's any bad move to add an in-state elite talent like this. Somebody to look out for. Yeah. So again, he plays at a lower classification. I don't think
Mhm.
that's going to matter when you get in the weight room. Anybody else on the offensive side of the ball that you'd like to show for Crimson Tide fans?
I think when you I mean, I think there are some interesting names that, you're not going to see year one. And I think for a lot of these guys, just because it is Alabama, there's the pedigree. There are years, 5 stars before them. You're not going to make an impact in year one. But someone I do think can make an impact, another in-state guy, is Kobe Prentice from Calera.
Yeah.
He just kind of catches everything. Like you look at his catch radius, he uses his body really, really well. And Alabama is going to need receivers next year a little bit. That has kind of been a position of kind of constant turnover for them as they've had so much success in filling out that room. And he has the opportunity to come in and just kind of understand what he's doing. He was a huge part of that offense this year. And it's less of, hey, just go run, and sprint and use your size. They used him to get open. They used him to establish things early downs. And that's all huge for Alabama as that their offense kind of develops into that modern style.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy they got is 4-star wide receiver Isaiah Bond from Buford, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
That was a recent commit. Hey, I'm going to throw one out. I'm looking at the list. There's another guy, Amari Neeblack from St. Petersburg, Florida. They call him the Juggernaut.
Yeah,
and he's an athlete. So I was looking at his highlights, and he's going out there. He's blocking. He's catching touchdowns in the end zone. He's playing on defense.
Yeah, he's one of those, like, you send them. I'm gonna mess up the cliche term, but like he's like send him first off the bus type of kid.
Yeah,
just kind of just looks gigantic. Like, what is he doing here? He can kind of do a little bit of everything. I think he's someone you can like see on special teams, kind of like day one, as like just kind of getting out there, and then if he can show that he can catch the ball, run with it a little bit. There can be some more of a use for him.
And apologies, his nickname is Jurassic because he is so big. So someone else to look for. Last thing I'll put out for the offensive sign is two big offensive tackles, top 10, Tyler Booker from IMG and Elijah Pritchett. So, but like you said, just because you're a 5-star in Alabama's roster does not mean you'll even see the field freshman year. I think we could look at the Brockmeyers last year, the number 1 center and the number 1 offensive line. We really haven't seen a lot from them this season. So that's good for Alabama.
Yeah, of course. And I think Tyler Booker, he was one of the bigger wins, I think, from the class. I think they beat out Georgia, Ohio State, some big schools for him. He's following Evan Neal, who was in the news today, I believe. I think he got some award for being a really good offensive lineman.
Consensus All-American.
Yeah. And and he follows him there. And Tyler's talked a bit in his recruitment process of seeing Evan and seeing some of the other IMG guys that Bama has, of like, they do it the right way. And it feels like those kids kind of pan out most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go to IMG, it's obviously a high school that is built to take you to the next level. And I think kids that go to IMG understand what Alabama is, and they don't have to go play rah-rah at the local school. They are going to try and make a career playing in the NFL. And obviously, Alabama has done that. That's a good switch. Let's go to defense real fast. And I was at the Thompson game a few weeks ago, and we'll talk about this guy right here. And I was talking with John Garcia. He's a Sports Illustrated director of recruiting. He was like, Thompson has nicer facilities than IMG Academy. So let's talk about what Thompson built with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Alexander, I put up a post yesterday on AL.com saying kind of like a breakdown of some of the guys we're talking about now. Of, hey, here are the 5 stars, 4 stars. And I referred to Jeremiah Alexander as like the gem of the class. And like, that's what he is. Like, he is you cannot guard him one-on-one on the boundary. A lot of teams try to do it during this postseason run that Thompson just completed. I think it's winning their 3rd straight state title. And he showed you why in that playoff run, why he's so good, why he was so coveted, and why Alabama fans should be so excited for him. He's quick. He's not so quick that he will give up on run plays and run past them. He can set things up for other defenders. Thompson, being as talented as they are, had a few other linemen that were able to really win their battles and help Jeremiah a bit. And he's also athletic. He caught a strip sack that Peter Woods, a class 2023 defensive lineman that Alabama fans should know. He caught one out in their semifinal game against Hoover and ran 50 yards downfield for an interception return for a touchdown.
Yes, sir.
Jeremiah, and it wasn't a big. It would be unfair to call it a big guy touchdown. It just looked like a tight end broke free, and he was kind of just going. And Alabama has an embarrassment of riches on the defensive line. next year coming up, we can get to a few names who they might also get, which would just kind of be laughably kind of stacked at times. But I mean, Jeremiah Alexander is one of those 5-star prospects that you put on the tape, and you can know nothing about football and you understand why.
And
he's
it's
5 stars.
funny because I brought this up with some of our Alabama colleagues, and I think about Jeremiah Alexander on the opposite edge of Will Anderson next year, and how scary. And a lot of them said, "Well, yeah, but they have Dallas Turner, they have a Drew
Dallas
Sanders."
Turner was a freshman who just came in.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So Alabama, it's very exciting to see these kind of pieces line up and the potential. But talk about linebacker. Let's go to Shawn Murphy. He's a 4-star out of Virginia, but he is the high school Butkus Award winner. Can you talk about him?
Yeah, when you look at some of the needs, we just talked about the defensive line, how there will be names there next year. Alabama is losing a bit at linebacker, whether it be seniors or the draft. And you need someone like Murphy, maybe not to step in right away, but to show something depth-wise, because Alabama will have the pass rushers. They'll need that kind of sideline-to-sideline tackler. You can see here, Murphy's really good at that. He does need to work on a little bit his coverage ability downfield. But I mean, I think it's something that you could see with his quickness. It's more of a technique aspect, not an ability one. And when you can have someone kind of just guiding a defense like that, I mean, we've seen that in Alabama for forever now. They can kind of have that linebacker run the show.
Yeah, very exciting. And remember, these are only a few of some of the coveted players that Alabama is getting tomorrow. Numerous other 4-stars: Jaleel Skinner, the tight end from IMG Academy; Traquan Fagans from Thompson. Another guy we're going to talk about, a linebacker, Robert Woodyard from Mobile, who could flip, longtime Tide commit. But let's go to tomorrow, which is actually when recruits will put pen to paper. What do you think is the best situation for the Tide tomorrow?
So I think just to cover the bases immediately, right? No sudden flips, no headlines of guys you aren't expecting anything from. The big names we've talked about, they are set to commit. You want to make sure that's fine. But other than that, there are a few big names that Alabama still has their hat in the ring with. And it's Damani Jackson, who is a cornerback that's pretty much just down to USC and Alabama.
Yeah, that's Friday, right?
Yeah, it is Friday. He was committed to USC, decommitted, and with Lincoln Riley going over there, that interest has gotten back up. And aside from that, we talked about the pass rushers. The biggest names Alabama can pull are just even more talented pass rushers, and the same likes of Jeremiah Alexander. And I'm talking about Marvin Jones Jr. at American Heritage in Florida. I have the whole list down right here. There's guys in the secondary, and Earl Little, who is leaning Alabama; Dalen Everett, who's a Clemson decommit who left after Brent Venables, jumped to Oklahoma. We haven't even touched on the cycle and how Alabama's been benefiting from that, but that's something that the stability that the Saban and the Tide bring has been a huge benefit from. And then there are some of the guys that in state we're thinking of that we haven't gotten to yet, like Curtis Perry and Shamar James, that also kind of help you on that pass rushing sense.
Yeah, and Curtis Perry will be committing at 1 p.m. tomorrow, so we will have video from that commitment. Don't know. Do you know he's the top unranked player in the state? Do you know where he's thinking?
I think
Alabama?
So I think real quick, I think Shamar might be one now. I think the last week, some of the recruiting sites have been changing it up. It's essentially
we go with Ben Thomas around here. We go with our local dude around here. But yeah, Ben Thomas, Shamar James, both committing tomorrow.
For Perry, so it's been interesting. I mean, there was all the reports about a month ago that he was at the Iron Bowl. Coming out of that, Auburn was his lead school. Saban visited him in addition to Gus Malzahn and UCF and Ohio State, which rounded out his top 5. In addition to the last school that he actually went on his last visit on this weekend, Clemson, which kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, Clemson coaches had seen him multiple times this season. He likes it, but everyone's head down here, we're kind of thinking it's an Iron Bowl battle between Alabama and Auburn.
Yeah,
I mean, I wrote this about a week ago. It might be oversimplifying it, but I think it's if you want playing time, well, Auburn's going to need some firepower on the defensive end next year. If you want to be part of, everything we talked about with Alabama, it's a pretty easy choice when Nick Saban walks through the door. So Curtis is.
I don't think that's oversimplifying at all. I think that's a great point of like what does a recruit need, and I'll say this for Alabama fans. You see a lot of, a little bit of degrading, like, oh, you don't want a ring, you don't want this. That might just not be the best situation for a player in that capacity. And if you do want those reps, to get you film on tape for NFL scouts, that's almost just as good. And if your situation is like that, to go to another school, let's just say that. Do you want to touch on Shamar James as well? Another in-state kid, former Florida recruit. He'll be announcing at 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, so he's not an Iron Bowl battle. It's a Alabama Georgia battle for him. Georgia, I believe, was able to get the last visit with Shamar, which is kind of widely seen as kind of one of the bigger indicators on where a recruit may be leaning. But Alabama was consistent in his recruitment from before he chose Florida originally through the second he decommitted. I think he was one of Saban visits last week too. He can kind of we talk about all these guys, they may not be the day one impact. I think Shamar James can be, just because physically he just kind of looks like you'd want, a collegiate player to look like right now. I do think Alabama is in a position to get two of, if not all three of the three kids we've mentioned in state at linebacker between Perry, James, and Woodyard. And Woodyard has been getting a lot to pressure from Auburn to flip.
Let's go to that right now. Long time commit. I want to say 2020. He committed to Alabama. He was out for the year with a torn meniscus, and like we said, I've heard a lot about him from his prep coach that this is an NFL level talent. So, what can you tell us about this guy?
Yeah, physically, I guess it's important to note for any fan interested in his talent and for his well-being. He does say he's doing well in his recovery right now from that torn meniscus that ended his senior season prematurely. I think he's saying he's set to play basketball, I believe. I don't think he's an early enrollee. I may be wrong on that, but he is doing fine, which is great. In terms of his skill set, it's fast, it's quick, it's aggressive downhill toward the ball that, you kind of he can do both, where I think Perry's more of a pass rusher, or you kind of slide him inside to kind of use his size. I think Woodyard is a linebacker type, and Auburn, if they get a flip, will have done a really good job on it, because I don't
absolutely.
We don't see Alabama lose some of these guys, especially in state, very often. And for Alabama, we mentioned it here. If they don't get Woodyard, fine. There is Curtis Perry, where I should mention a lot of recruiting sites are predicting Perry to choose the Tide tomorrow. And then, there's Earl Little. There's so many 4 and 5 stars.
Hey, I'll shout out Vacherie, Louisiana. I spent some time out there. Shouts Preston committing tomorrow, number 3 wide receiver in the nation from St. James, out there in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So a lot of good talent coming in tomorrow. What can we look forward to from you on the writing side of things?
Yeah, a lot of updates from me and the rest of the staff on who exactly they will be signing and who will be joining the team next year. A lot of breakdowns on what makes this year a little bit different. I have been talking to a few of the recruits who said it was really interesting getting able to go to games repeatedly this year with COVID restrictions kind of being a little bit more lax. A lot of recruits like Jeremiah Alexander kind of being able to hold court at the games pretty much every Saturday that they could, because it was so close and they were able to see all their friends. And you did see that Alexander was able to flip one of his teammates in Traquan Fragans from Miami to the Tide. So kind of stuff like that, kind of tracking what's made this year different, and what it means moving forward. I'm sure Saban will say that, these players will be working hard and needing to accomplish what they need to do to improve or whatever. Like, I saw that Saban last year said, we accomplished what we wanted to. And, they had one of the best classes historically ever recorded. So I think it's,
I don't think it's an sorry to cut you off. I don't think it's an understatement how crucial the official visits are, because they allow you to see not just obviously a great game on Saturday, but all the facilities, where you'll be living. There's NIL meetings. There's a whole weekend that they plan for you. They take you to dinner. They do this. I don't think you get on the boat with Saban just yet. I think you got to sign to go on the boat ride with Saban. But and another thing I would just say real fast for Alabama fans is I think they are able to kind of capitalize on this chaos at Clemson, Turnover at Oklahoma. Obviously, everybody knows what Texas is kind of looking like. Even the USC situation. Yeah, everybody's hyped, but if you don't win, turnover at Oregon. Yeah. Alabama is the stable one, and I think that Tide fans will probably be able to see that capitalize in the next few years with these classes. So, look at this comment. What a great show, covering the Tide with class. We both wore nice shirts today. So
yeah. I was gonna throw on a red polo, but then I had to stop myself.
There you go, boy. There you go. Cool. So early signing day, Alabama with another #1 class. We'll have lots of content on AL.com. Nick Alvarez, he's our recruiting writer, just joined the team. So go check out all his stuff. Check out Ben Thomas, because he'll have recruits from around the state. And we'll be getting ready for, that, and then the Cotton Bowl, obviously, on New Year's Eve. So Nick, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Patrick, thanks for having me. And tomorrow should be a pretty standard day for Alabama fans according to the past few years.
That's what we like to hear. So, okay, everybody have a great, I believe it's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. So y'all have a great one, and we'll see you next week.